Hi everyone, and welcome to the Scopes roundtable session. We have a few people here very involved in Scopes from development to design, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So let's start with Alejandro.
I cannot hear you.
Alejandro, we can hear you.
Muted.
No, we can't hear you. Okay, let's move on to James. And so, Alejandro, fix his mic.
Okay. Hi, I'm James. I work on the Unity API team with Pavel and everyone else. I've sort of worked on a few of the default scopes, including music and video ones, and helped develop the Go bindings, which are used for a number of the other scopes found on the phones.
Thanks. Kyle, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kyle Fazzari. I'm also on the Unity API team with James and Aliku. I'm really just here because my browser isn't working on the YouTube stream, so I probably won't be participating that much.
Well, that's a good reason. Patricia.
Hello, my name is Patricia Davila. I am part of the design team based here in London. I'm a UX designer, and I've been working on the redesign of the scopes for over 6-7 months now. So I'm just here to just basically respond any doubt or any support, any question related to design.
And Pavel?
Yeah, I'm Pavel. I work in Unity API team on scopes mostly.
So Alejandro was supposed to start, but maybe Pavel, you can tell us a bit more if we are going to see API changes in scopes for the next cycle.
Changes, not really. Additions, yes. So we are trying to keep the API stable, and we do not want to break any scopes. So we are only adding features, trying to avoid any API breaks as much as possible. Yeah, we have some features, small and big, coming. One of the biggest announcements from yesterday is we now also have JavaScript bindings, but I'm not going to talk much about that because that's a big topic for tomorrow, where JavaScript bindings will be presented and demoed. I have a couple of slides to give you a very quick overview of the recent additions to the API. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share them right now. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
So the first feature I want to mention is a minor one, but might make a difference for some scopes. So we now support a small API enhancement that allows you to update select widgets in the existing preview without forcefully refreshing entire preview again. So that means that you can have, for example, a button in a preview, and when a user taps it, instead of refreshing entire preview, which results in a blank screen for a while, and then the preview is redrawn and with potentially updated content, you can update just this single button or a single widget. It basically works for any widget or widgets. So I have a simple flow here. So imagine you have a scope with a login to Twitter button, but this can be anything. And you you hit it and you are presented, of course, with online accounts. You allow it to access. You allow Scope to access your online account, the Twitter account. You are presented with results again. You go to a preview. Now, since you are authorized, you have this "I like it" button, which is a red circle here. And when you hit it, it's replaced with "Thank you" without refreshing entire preview. And this is just a very simple test scope. This could very well update not only the button but replace the image with something new, etc. So a way of for instant updating of a preview that's already on the display. Next one. Sorry, I'm fighting with controls here. Okay, just a really quick glance of what kind of code is involved in that. So basically, if you recall how previous work, etc. in Scope, you have to implement this preview run method and you create your widgets. So in this example, I create a new icon actions widget, which is this addition for related to this new feature. You provide an icon for it. You also can provide a temporary icon, which is an icon that the shell will display immediately as you tap the button before going to the backend. This is so that if it takes a while for the Scope to actually apply your change related to the button you pressed, the shell can immediately give you some kind of feedback by changing the icon immediately. And now the second part of this new feature is when you actually handle the button action itself. As you see, this is the handling of this "I like" button, and here this is the last line where our return activation response. This is the main change in the API, where we now allow activation response to return a list of widgets that need to be updated in response to the user activation. So that's a really quick overview of it. The next new feature, the bigger one, is the inline music playback, which is currently in a silo. Not landed yet, but should land soon, hopefully. There were a couple of issues, mostly in the backend, that we need to iron out. Once they are fixed, we should have green light and landed. So the basic idea is that for music, for songs, you can have a play button imposed on the cards, and you can immediately start playback from the card itself without going to preview or music app. So first time you can see it is in a music scope, in the aggregator scope, where you see my music here, and these are the play buttons. The other way to access it is from my music scope itself. If you go to tracks department, I'm sorry, it's a localized version of the scope, a Polish version. So you have songs here, and you have these play buttons. And once you hit play, you see that the playback starts, and you have also the progress bar alongside the result, and you can also pause it from here. And this feature integrates with sound indicator, so you at any time you can pull down the indicator and skip to next or previous song, for example. And also you can leave the scope, and the playback will continue in the background, and you can go to the indicator and stop it from the indicator. And there is really not much the scope is required for that to work. The only thing for scope author that needs to happen is the result card needs to have a predefined, needs to fill in a predefined attribute which says this card is an audio content, and here is the URI to play, and the rest is then automatically handled by the shell and Media Hub. Okay, next one. Okay, the other features are smaller, and I'm not having really any visuals for them. So one addition that's already available, that's been added 2 or 3 months ago, and it's available already, but not many scopes use it, if any, I'm not sure, is results caching. So basically the idea is that at any point when the search is successful and giving any results in surfacing, so this is when you look at the scope and there's no search query and you are just looking at surfacing results, we are caching these results all the time behind the scenes. And then if your scope sees any issues with networking, for example, on surfacing, it might call push surfacing results from cache method, and this will transparently for you push all the good results from the last time without any complex logic, etc. So this is a nice way of dealing with transient errors with networking, etc. Also coming soon, we have a change for improved refreshing of the dash during search. This is a problem we have been facing since the beginning. So you can see this a lot when you use scopes, where as you type, the dash becomes empty for a long time before first result arrives. Especially visible as you type your query slowly. So we have changes ready in a silo which improve this a lot. We no longer clear the dash anymore as you search. Instead, we just apply apply changes or add the results on the display as they arrive, replacing existing ones. Might not sound big in theory, but in practice makes a really huge difference. It works much nicer with this new approach. I think Patricia can confirm. Patricia did some exploratory testing of that change. We also working on.
But this is very noticeable, for instance, in the Today scope, which is what you usually see when you turn your phone on. And it was the case that you will turn your phone on after some time of not using it, and then the Today scope will refresh itself. And then what will happen is that you turn on your phone and you see a white screen while the Today scope is loading, right? So, so this change is very visible there because you will still see the results there, and you will see that they will start changing as new results arrive, right? But you don't get that experience of the white empty scopes that you had before.
Right. Also, that should be reduced a lot now.
It's slightly noticeable too when installing apps, or I know you're in the store scope and you install an app. What will happen before is that you started the install of an app, and then while it was downloading and all of that, you changed back to the home page, and when the app finished downloaded, you will see a refresh, and so the scope will turn white, and now that won't happen because the scope will still be the same, and only the small label that says installed, the price will change into the installed or those kind of things. So it's a much nicer experience for when installing apps, right? Both in the store and in the installed app scopes.
Right. So and the good thing is there is nothing to do on the scope side for this improved.
Right, for developers.
It's purely a shell change. So the only thing blocking us from landing it right now is we found some cases of some aggregator scopes that were misbehaving or not fully utilizing this because they were doing some using API in a very suboptimal way. So these scopes are being fixed as we speak, and this feature should land soon. The other feature is filters. I don't have much to say about that right now, apart from that we are working on that, and we have a lot of designs ready, and we started some first implementation. So something should be available soon. And the last one is a big one, as I said, JavaScript bindings. Stay tuned for the session tomorrow. Marcus will handle that and demo that. And that's it from my side. Any questions on that?
I think no. I would like to add that the JavaScript bindings that they are based on Node.js. So when using the JavaScript bindings, not only would be very easy to code a scope compared with what was before using C++ or Go. So it will be much easier for somebody with a background in web development to go scope, but also since we are using Node.js, will allow people to use Node.js past library of modules that allow you to interact with many web services and many other things as well. So I think it will be a very good experience. We're very eager to see what the community comes up with these bindings.
On this topic, to celebrate these new bindings, in a couple of weeks, we are going to launch a scopes contest. So stay tuned for that. It will be not only JavaScript scopes, but Go scopes as well, and C++ scopes, of course. We will have a proper announcement on the developer blog very soon, like early next week.
Sounds wonderful.
Patricia, maybe you could tell us what you are working on.
I definitely could. I actually really am very excited about all the new changes that will come soon to scopes in terms of the experience. But I can touch a bit of an overview of it, but I can really not talk about the details because we're still reviewing with the stakeholders. We need to do a lot of testing and we need to iterate on that. So there is some design that is in really good shape, finished yet already, but we are entering now the prototyping phase where we're going to build a couple of prototypes and start testing. So I wanted to mention when Pavel was going through the presentation that I think I agree. I think the changes that he mentioned improve the experience massively. The change of, instead of clearing the results, just be using the cache of them to not provide that broken experience, but rather display the same results that were before. So in the apps scope as well, that improved massively the experience. And also we incremented the timing between the key strokes, so it feels more natural for the user because typing in an online on-screen keyboard is different from a physical keyboard. And so we kind of adjusted a bit the timing to not refresh the scope every time the user enters a letter. Therefore, it will feel much more natural when the user stops typing. Therefore, we will provide it with the results. That's regarding the features that he mentioned. Also filters. I've been testing Silo that Paul provided me last week, and also it feels really exciting to see how much that will improve the scopes experience, because at the end of the day, the user wants to browse, wants to consume content, and the expectations is to have a way of filtering those results, sorting those results, so he can get to the content that he's interested in faster and in a more delightful manner, basically. So yeah, we'll see that soon, hopefully. And in the other hand, we are currently working in the redesign of the card, in general, scope toolkit layout. So I cannot give any dates on that, but yeah, that should be tested soon. Therefore, we will provide some news. So we want to basically give a visual refresh to the whole toolkit component to give it to make it more modern and adapted to nowadays, basically. That's all from my side in terms of what I'm working on at the moment in Scopes.
When you mentioned the filter silo, that actually reminded me of one aspect of the changes related to filters which actually might be disruptive to scopes, because previously I promised we are not breaking scopes, but there's one aspect that might affect scopes, and this is a slight change in the search semantics. So the change is about the ability to search inside departments and with filters selected without forcefully limiting search to only be global, etc. So the effect is that some scopes are not really expecting that and might be a little bit misbehaving. And one example would be app scope, music scope, the other one. Yeah, so there might be a slight, we might need slight updates to some scopes related to that. So no API change, but semantics change.
Yeah, I can confirm that pretty much all remote scopes will be misbehaving after this change.
All right, okay. Awesome.
Marcus has a question. Could you give a brief overview of what filters will be available and how they will add to the overall user experience? That's for you or Patricia, I guess.
Could you repeat the question? I kind of missed the first part, sorry.
Could you give a brief overview of what filters will be available?
What filters?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, basically, we have designed a library of basic filters like range, slider, input, time and date picker, and so filters that this is the basic filters that can be expected in any normal application. However, we have prioritized that list, and we are starting with some of them, and therefore the delivery of them will, Pavel is more aware about that. But basically, the general UX overview of the reasoning behind the change of the search semantics that we decided to do, and also the making filters available for scope authors so they can provide a better experience, is to do with user expectations, basically, to, again, going back to the nature of the scope, which is very focused on the content, and we want to make content first. We want to help the user narrow down what they are searching for, basically, in a quicker way. So yeah, we'll have, as I said, sliders, input range, date and time picker. Yeah, at some point, I believe the plan is to make those filters align and consistent with the SDK components as well. So any third-party app developer or scope author could use it. I don't know, Pavel, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so initially we will probably have only an option selector, a drop-down list with single or multiple choices, the range input where you can enter two values for a range using keyboard, and the other filters will come later. One problem is, as Patricia mentioned, we are trying to align with SDK, and some of the new filters require new SDK components which do not exist, or which are going to be updated or replaced with some newer revisions. So yeah, that's a lot of work ahead. So we will not be able to deliver all at once, I think.
In any case, the same as with other features, we're building this in silos, so people in the audience that want to try this out can already try the filter silo, which I don't recall the number, and also the one with the better refreshes for scopes. That seems to be released, so I guess they can start testing that as well if they're interested. Pavel, do you recall the numbers of those silos?
Yeah, filters are in silo 8. The only remark for anyone who wants to test is it's not behaving well with existing scopes. The main test case I have for them is a custom scope that I created, just a dummy scope just for testing. And the other silo you mentioned was for the Dash updates. This is silo 20.
All right, awesome.
So 8 and 20.
So silo 20 is much closer to release, so people can test it and see something. It will be almost that what we'll be releasing. But the filter silo do not start. Perhaps if you want to try it, you can try it for some of your scope, be exactly like we would be releasing. So I would suggest not to upload things to the store or scopes to the store that use these features until we release them properly. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
James, maybe you could talk a bit about what you are working on.
Okay. Well, from what Pavel was talking about with some of these new features, we're going to be bringing these to the Go bindings as well. So I guess that's going to be important if people want to use this in this scopes contest. So you won't be disadvantaged if you're going to be picking Go for all that. I guess other stuff. Some of the stuff I've been working on recently isn't directly scopes related, but one thing which might be interesting to scope authors. We've been working on improvements to the thumbnail encode, which is used by a number of the scopes, including the music scopes, I think the Songkick one, and videos. Soon we're going to be disabling the fixed fallback images in the thumbnailer. Once we do that, it'll be possible for scopes to use a custom fallback. So this is for cases where artist artwork isn't available, or an album artwork's not available, or we can't extract a video frame from a movie which you recorded. And so if you don't like the current default images which we provide, it's possible to for the scope to replace those on a category by category basis. So yeah, this is part of this work sort of already in a silo, but we still need to get the thumbnail bits after some of the scope changes are in. So I guess it's about all the stuff which is going to be available soon, which I've been working on.
Sounds really good. Thanks, James.
I have a question for Patricia. What is the biggest problem right now you want to tackle with a design change? the thing you feel
there
that
are no small
needs to be
problems,
fixed.
only big.
Well, I could actually tackle all the small ones. I don't know. It's not. I think we have something very valuable with the scopes. I've worked on something else when I joined Canonical over a year ago, and I worked in something else before. And since I got into scopes, I really, really, really like them and find them really valuable. And I think it's something that distinguishes us a lot from many other competitors. So I would like to. The biggest challenge, I guess, is in terms of I don't know. I just want to. I think from the design team, what we want to is optimize the experience, and we need to do this little by little. Pavel mentioned in his slides the new features that are going to be implemented. So that makes me so happy to see the inline playback, to see that we are going to enable comments from the preview. Basically, those kind of little things that are small features that we're releasing little by little, that I think improves a lot the user experience. Because of course we want to limit the interaction that a user can have with the scopes, because of course they are not applications, they are not built in that way. But we definitely want to improve every little detail. And I guess, I don't know, as a bigger challenge, what I find myself personally dealing with is understanding the whole infrastructure of the scopes, tackling the whole redesign of the toolkit, understanding how a scope author also deals with all the toolkit. So because we have two types of users, we have the mass user, basically any person that buys an Ubuntu phone, and we have the scope author that we need to think about them as well as users utilizing every part of the toolkit. I don't know if that answered the question, or if I understood it wrong. I don't know. There are many challenges, but we want to optimize the experience now. It's not that we are building the experience from scratch. The scopes are there and they work and they are fun, but we need to improve them.
Thanks. It was a great answer. So it appears we have another question.
Yes, that's the question.
MVV is asking, how the apps you develop this way are platform dependence, DE dependence? I'm not sure I get the question, but
so I think MVVV is asking if the scopes that you develop with these APIs are dependent on a given platform and are independent on a given desktop environment, right? So I would say that yes, any scope that, well, first I should say that scopes are not exactly apps. They are more like servers, very small servers that are very easy to start and very fast to start, and that's why you can have many scopes providing different set of info running at once, and they are much faster to start their apps, right? So they're not exactly apps, but I would say that they are very platform dependent. They are very much dependent on Unity 8, because Unity 8 is the one that knows how to interact with scopes via its UI, right? So I think that they're very much dependent on this on Unity 8 as a desktop environment, and they are very much at this point very much dependent on Ubuntu to run, right? So, but if you have some other Linux where you run Unity 8, or even if you want to reuse the scope infrastructure and make it run on a different platform, I don't think that will be very much. It will be a big effort, but I don't think it's an impossible one, right? So you might be able to get this running on some other platform and interacting with some other desktop environment. And since all of this is open source, then you're, I mean, all of the infrastructure is open source, and many of the scopes are also open source. I think somebody willing to do that can make this run in some other platform. But it's not what we are targeting, and it's not what we're very much focused on Unity 8, and so that means that we're focused on Ubuntu Phone and the Ubuntu converged devices that are being worked on, that present this UI that runs on the phone, and also it will run on a screen that you attach to that. And also it's the future that we want to take Ubuntu to. We want to take Ubuntu for this same code base to be running on desktop at some point, and so all of the scopes that you develop will be running on every of those platforms, right? Is that what you were asking, MBBB? I hope so.
I believe it answers the question. We will wait for his feedback. We have another question from Guaca. Is there some plan to provide, it looks like to be a very broad question, is there some plan to provide a fully customizable scope, a way to aggregate apps, contents, favorites on a scope directly on the phone? I guess that by customizable, it talks about the data. Does anyone want to take this one?
Right. It's customizing scopes is one of the things that we're planning to. We don't have any concrete details to share at this moment. We are working hard on design options for this, but we don't have anything to show just yet, right? Aggregating apps and content and favorites on a scope directly on the phone. You can do that at this point by writing an aggregator scopes that takes info from several set of other scopes. And there's also a customizable aggregator scope where you, Kyle Nietzsche might provide more details. We need to find him because he's the one writing it, but it's a scope that you can configure, an aggregator scope that you can configure via I don't recall if it's an ini file or a JSON file.
It's a JSON.
It's a JSON, right? So you define other scopes that you want to aggregate by creating this JSON file, and then you create a new scope that uses that JSON file, and that aggregator scope, if you install it on a device, then it will look similar to, for instance, the today scope or the nearby scopes, right? So
yeah, so that's obviously an option for developers.
Yeah,
right.
I just want to add that in terms of from the user point of view, or what we are planning to do as well, and as Alejandro mentioned, we're currently working on several design options that we will then test and see how we can iterate on that. We obviously found that users want to customize their phone, make them theirs, basically, which is understandable. So we are currently working on enabling configuration of things and the curation of the content. So that would apply to the things that a scope can aggregate, and also will apply to the data itself, the cards that represent certain different type of content, and that the user could potentially curate those, make them collections of things, or like save them to a special place that you can always go back. So there's two angles to this customization work. Word is always interesting because, of course, we are working in customization for the scope author point of view, but also customization from the user point of view. So yes, it's in our plans definitely we're looking towards the long term of fully custom scope. That's really, really exciting, but as well, as I said, it's in the long term.
And one remark about the aggregator you advertised, Aleku. So a word of caution, I think we do not allow third parties to implement aggregators and publish in the store. So that's pretty much excludes
yes,
community
that's
right
a
now.
very good point. So at this
that's
point,
for security reasons.
Mm-hmm. For security reasons, we don't allow aggregator scopes to be shipped on the store. If somebody wants to use this aggregator scope as a base for their own scope, they can side load it if they are a developer by installing it manually, or if they want to set up. We don't recommend it, but if they want to set up the open store where many applications and scopes that that don't follow the security model are available. They are available for power users, and that's another option, right? They can publish it there as well, but it's not something that we will recommend to every user because it brings a different set of issues, right? It might bring some set of issues. So that's not my official option, but I wanted just to mention it. We have another
At the same
question.
time, also,
Sure,
sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to go on to that. If we do sort of have a sort of generic aggregator which is configured via configuration file, then it's possible that in future we might sort of allow we might be able to allow custom aggregators based on that into the store. I mean, because if they're sort of limited to what this generic aggregator scope can do, then that sort of gets rid of a lot of the security concerns.
True. Yeah. Yeah, something like that can actually be an option for this fully customizable aggregators. Yes, for user customizable aggregators.
All right, we've been joined by Kyle Nish, who's the author of this scope that we were just mentioning, the one that aggregates based on a JSON description. So perhaps, hi Kyle, perhaps you can give us a bit more detail on that.
Hi, I'm sorry that I wasn't aware of the schedule. I should have joined earlier. Were you discussing the scope aggregator?
Right. There was a question on the channel. Somebody asked, is there some plan to provide a fully customizable scope, a way to aggregate apps, content, favorites, and a scope directly on the phone? We mentioned that we're working on making this, having a way to customize, for end users to customize the scopes by just interacting with the scope and selecting things. But in the meantime, one option is using, one option that's available for developers is using an aggregator scope. And one that we mentioned was the one that you built that starts from a JSON description. We also mentioned, just a second, we also mentioned that aggregator scopes are currently not allowed to be shipped in the store, so because of security reasons, but that developers wanting to create a scope can use that and sideload it, right? So perhaps you can give us a bit more details on the scope.
Right. So yeah, there's a project, Scope Aggregator, obviously, which I wrote in C++. And what all of our aggregator scopes, well, not all, but most of our aggregator scopes right now that are published use Scope Aggregator. And yeah, you can define what the Scope Aggregator includes and how it includes it and various aspects of it by declaration in a JSON file. So the aggregator scope can, for example, include an individual scope by fully qualified name, or declare scopes for aggregation by keywords, and you can declare whether or not you want to use departments and custom category titles, and really a wide range of functionality. So for example, the today scope, the nearby scope, the news scope, and the photo scope all are scope aggregator projects. So they are created by taking the .so file from scope aggregator and adding to that a JSON file which declares all of the customizable bits. It's in the simple case, it's pretty easy to use. Yes, it can't go into the store yet because, as was mentioned, aggregator scopes run unconfined. So what I'm wondering is there's two things I want to quickly say. One is whether we might be able to allow aggregator scopes that are based on Scope Aggregator into the store, because we can have a signature, a digital signature, on the SO file. So scope aggregator release 1.6, say we know what the CRC or hash or SHA-1 is, and so if an external developer were to use that .so, we can prove that it's the right SO, and the only other part to it is the JSON that declares child scopes. Just an idea. It would enable external developers to get their aggregator scopes into the store. I'm not sure if there are other security concerns, but
yeah, I think one concern is, but I might not be totally correct on this, but one concern I remember always was the case is we would actually need to inspect the code of an aggregator to understand if it's not shipping the data somewhere else, because it's very problematic for aggregators, as they could, for example, easily query your call scope or some other scope, and that way they could pull any private data and ship it somewhere else.
Right.
That's the main concern, and I do not know how really solve this issue right now.
I understand that. I wonder if we might be able to blacklist scopes if the JSON file, includes certain scopes, like for example calls. Then the user would not. Then it would not be prevented from the store. Just an idea. Maybe it wouldn't work. Something we should think about.
Well,
yes.
Well, at the same time, Pavel's concern, that's we'd really only need to do that kind of code review of the scope aggregator code base itself, and if we worked out some way for these scopes to be put on the store without them including a copy of the scope aggregator code, then and having it so that scopes are loaded up correctly and make sure they're using only the data file that they're which they distributed, then we could be fairly certain that they couldn't do any of this bad stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are ways around it, both approaches. Maybe blacklisting, but also if we trust scope aggregator, then fine. So I also want to just mention the question of end user customization of scopes. I don't know how much of this you already covered, but interestingly, I got a request a couple of days ago. Some folks have written a Places scope that I think uses the Google Places API, and they were wondering why it wasn't showing up for them in Nearby scope, in the Nearby scope. So I did document on developer.ubuntu.com the keywords that certain scopes are currently aggregating, and their namespace keywords. That is, it's not a simple thing like places for various reasons, but it would be, so for example, if you look on there, you'll find nearby dot, let's say places. That's not actually one. It shows the exact keywords that the nearby scope aggregates. And once I tested their scope, I actually just went into the runtime, installed version of their scope, and I modified in its scope any file the keyword that it said it was using, and I fixed it to be what nearby aggregates, and boom, it showed up in the nearby scope in the right place. So we have and the same thing is true for the news scope right now. I've documented like this news.headlines, news.finance, news.sports, so that end users can, if there are child scopes out there that advertise that keyword, they will appear in the aggregator scopes, and then end users can either install those child scopes or not, and furthermore, in the scope settings, turn on and off. Maybe they don't want the places scope to be in nearby. Okay, well they turn it off in settings. So through this, I think kind of careful use of keywords, we can get a lot of content into the right places, and still have end users be able to control it. So I think I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that's a good point. But adding to that, I think still our goal is to give user a complete freedom in how he arranges the content. He might want nearby and music at the same time on a single screen, yeah, but absolutely, what you are saying is absolutely valid. Yeah.
Cool. Like a drag and drop scope aggregator. Just drag it over and put in whatever you want, right?
I think
All right,
what you
the
meant-
session was about is about to end. I wanted to mention just one more question that was in the channel, which is whether Unity 8 was stable or when there will be a stable release of Unity 8. We think that Unity 8 is stable because it's been used on Ubuntu phones for almost a year now, so we're pretty confident that it's stable. And it's getting closer to be useful also for converged devices. But that's where we're taking it. All right. Any other thing? If anybody has other thing, then we'll stay in the channel for a little bit to answer any further questions. And David, did you want to add anything else?
No, I think we had a great chat with this session, and we will be able to follow up on IRC and the Ubuntu Phone mailing list if anyone has questions. So thanks everyone for coming, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks a lot to you for leading the session. Thanks a lot to James, who stayed very late to come to this session. And thanks, of course, to everybody making scopes. We love you guys. Thanks a lot.
And don't miss the session tomorrow on JavaScript scopes. It's going to be a great one if you want to learn how to make scopes.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, take care.